The diner was dark. The neon sign that had glowed for 40 years was cold. A handwritten closed sign wept in the rain. Inside, Barbara Wallace wiped the counter for the last time. The damp rag was her only companion. Then a shadow at the door. An old man in gray coveralls. A folded document in his grip. He didn't move. The rag twisted in her hand. Monday morning, this place would be a memory. But why was he here tonight? 6 years earlier, this diner breathed. Laughter, clinking plates, and a waitress who knew everyone's order. One Sunday, a dusty janitor shuffled through the door. He clutched a metal lunchbox and looked like he hadn't eaten a hot meal in days.
Just water.
Coffee and pie on the house.
He never said much, but his eyes spoke a gratitude that his voice couldn't carry.
$3,000. Where am I going to get $3,000 by Monday?
I am sorry, Barbara. The bank called the note. We close in 4 weeks. No buyers.
After 22 years, Frank, just like that?
That night, she counted her tips, $11.48. Not enough for Idiot's next payment.
If I lose this job, I lose her. There's no backup plan.
Sunday arrived like a break in the clouds. The old janitor walked in, coveralls gray as always, and sat at the counter. His boots were split at the seams. She noticed and blinked away her own fears. He didn't need to see them. She placed the coffee and pie before him. The ritual was muscle memory now. He nodded, his usual currency of gratitude. She smiled, a cracked shield. At home, the stack of envelopes had grown. A red past due stamp stared back at her. The diner was sinking, and so was she.
Mama's pearls. Maybe I could sell them, but they're all I have left of her smile.
The closing sale sign went up on a Thursday. Barbara traced the tall letters with her finger, as if she could rewrite them by touch alone. On Friday, the diner felt like a wake. Long-time customers brought flowers. Some cried. Barbara held each hand as if it might be the last time. On Monday, the bank said no. Insufficient income. Unstable future. She locked herself in the supply closet and sobbed into her apron until her ribs ached.
I am losing everything. Mom's care, this diner, myself.
That Sunday, the janitor's eyes were different. They studied her face like a man, searching for something he'd lost long ago.
Thank you, Barbara, for everything.
You are welcome, Harold. You've been a constant in this place. He's never said more than 3 words. Why now?
Tuesday evening, she spotted him across the street. He stood in the rain, staring at the diner, motionless as a statue. By the time she reached the door, he was gone. Just a wet footprint, and a question she couldn't shake. Saturday night came, and the diner had never felt so hollow. Chairs turned up on tables, the register a silent vault. Every pass of her rag was a small goodbye. The countertop shone where 1,000 elbows had rested.
22 years. Tomorrow it turns back into just a building.
She dialed the care facility from the back office. Her mother's voice came through thin and confused.
Barbara, you sound tired, baby. Are you working too hard again?
No, Mama. I am fine. Just a busy weekend. I'll come see you Monday, I promise.
She hung up and let the lie settle. Her apron came off slowly, the name tag catching the last light. The diner stared back at her. Every corner, a memory she couldn't pack into a box. She flipped the lock on the front door. The sign read closed, but tomorrow it would open one last time.
One more Sunday. Then it's over.
Morning light bled through the diner windows. Barbara unlocked the door one last time, every jingle a small wound. Just after 8, the old janitor appeared at the door. Same coveralls, same flat cap, but this time, a manila envelope thick as a brick under his arm.
A manila envelope. In 6 years, he's never carried anything but his lunchbox. Morning, Harold. The usual?
He didn't reply. His thumb traced the edge of the envelope, like it held a detonator. By 2 o'clock, the diner had emptied. Only Harold remained, a sentinel at the counter with his untouched coffee.
Barbara, can we talk? I mean really talk. Somewhere private.
Private? What's this about, Harold?
Something I should have said a long time ago. Something I've been carrying since my wife died.
She led him to the corner booth, the last booth she'd ever clean, her heart hammered behind her name tag. In the corner booth, Harold finally met her eyes. The envelope lay between them like a held breath.
My wife, Martha, before she died, she made me promise never to forget where I came from. She said, "Wear the coveralls, stay close to the ground. The world needs people who remember what it is to have nothing."
He traced the edge of the envelope. 40 years, Barbara. I've been doing this, visiting diners, ordering water, watching for someone who'd give without calculating the cost. He paused, then said, "You were the only one. Every Sunday for 6 years, you saw a man, not a transaction."
He's been testing me all this time, and I never knew.
I'll come back at closing. There's something I need to show you.
He stood, leaving the envelope on the table. It sat there like a locked door. Barbara watched him walk out, her mind racing with questions she couldn't outrun. Who was this man, really? And what sat inside that folded paper? The diner settled into silence after he left. She didn't open the envelope. Couldn't. Not yet.
It's probably just a thank you note. He's a janitor, not a miracle worker. Stop hoping.
She busied herself with closing tasks. Wipe the pie case. Lock the register. The hours felt like years. In the supply closet, reaching for the mop, her knees buckled. A sob tore out of her, raw as a wound.
I can't do this. I can't start over at my age. Mom needs me, and I can't even pay this month.
She stayed there until her throat burned and her eyes were dry. Then she scrubbed her face with a rag. At 6, a shadow filled the entrance. Harold stood there, coveralls pressed, the envelope clutched to his chest. He didn't knock again, just waited. She crossed the floor and turned the lock.
I said I'd come back. I always keep my word.
I didn't open it. Come in, Harold. Sit down.
They sat at the counter. The envelope, once again, a barrier between them. His cap rested beside his elbow, worn as promise kept.
I am not a janitor, Barbara. I own this building. I own the whole block.
He's the landlord. All this time, I gave free coffee to the man who owned the ground beneath me.
He spoke with the calm of a man who had waited decades to say it. No arrogance, just gravity.
In 1981, I bought this property. It was my first real success. I've held it ever since, wearing these coveralls.
Every Sunday, he could have raised the rent, fired me, laughed at my pity. Instead, he just said, "Thank you."
She stared at the envelope, then at him. The questions were stacking up like unpaid bills.
Martha asked me to stay close to the ground. The rest, it's in there. But first, I need you to understand why.
He placed his hand flat on the envelope. It trembled, not from age, but from something older than words. Just a manila envelope, but it held a weight she was only beginning to feel. He began speaking again, low and even, like a man untangling a knot, 40 years in the making.
37 diners, Barbara. I visited them all in these coveralls. Always water, always watching. Some waitresses wouldn't even look at me. Others charged for the glass and the booth. But you.
He paused. His eyes left hers and traveled to some place beyond the diner's walls.
You brought coffee and pie before I could ask. Every Sunday, 6 years, you never once made me feel small.
He's been watching me for 6 years, and I never saw him. He sits on millions, wearing boots with holes.
He reached for the envelope, but his fingers stopped on the string. Not yet. Not until she understood.
Martha wanted me to find someone like you. Someone who gives without expecting. You are the one.
She couldn't speak. The test, the years, the silence, locked her voice.
You passed, Barbara. Now, I need you to see what passing a test like this is worth.
He slid the envelope across the counter. The scrape of paper against Formica was louder than any confession.
Inside is the deed to this diner, free and clear. I've paid the back taxes. There's a renovation fund, enough to make it yours.
A deed? He's giving me the whole diner? This has to be some kind of cruel joke. Harold, I can't. It's too much. You barely know me.
I know you better than anyone, Barbara. I've watched you for 6 years. You've earned this every Sunday.
Her hands shook, gratitude and shame colliding. She had spent mornings counting coins while he held millions.
He sees me as charity. But if I don't accept, Mom won't make it another month.
It's not charity. It's repayment for something I lost long ago. Open it, please.
The envelope sat between them, heavier than a deed. It was a test she didn't want to fail again.
I can't. Not like this. Not when every bone in my body says I don't deserve it.
There's one condition, Barbara. Every Sunday, coffee and pie for anyone in coveralls. Free, forever. That's all I ask.
Every Sunday. He's asking me to do what I've done for him for 6 years. For every soul who walks in with worn boots.
With trembling fingers, she loosened the string. The flap lifted, and paper rustled like a whispered promise. The paper was thick, official. The words "Deed of Sale" shimmered under the diner's pale lights. The deed read, Grantee, Barbara Wallace. Property, 1402, East Carson Street.
My name, right here. This is my diner. He's giving me my diner.
It's yours. Only one promise. Free coffee and pie every Sunday for anyone in coveralls.
Mama always said, give without expecting. Now it's come back to me full circle.
She held the deed, hands shaking. A promise unspoken still hung in the air.
Say yes, it's the only way. But what if I fail him? Harold, I'll sign the deed. But you have to promise me something in return.
Anything, Barbara. Anything in my power.
You keep coming for coffee every Sunday, not as the owner of the block, not as a benefactor, as a friend, as the man I've been serving for 6 years. Because this diner is yours too now. Promise me that.
Harold's eyes widened, then softened. A smile broke across his face, the kind that starts in the eyes and takes its time.
I was afraid you'd tell me to stop coming. I can do that. I will do that.
This wasn't a test. It was a search for family, and he found it at a counter with a cup of coffee.
They shook hands across the counter, the deed pinned between their palms. A covenant not of money, but of belonging.
Every Sunday, Barbara. You have my word.
She held his hand a beat longer. Her tears finally shed not from grief or fear, but from something that felt frighteningly like hope.
Then it's settled. Welcome home, Harold. Your spot will always be waiting.
From his coveralls, Harold spread blueprints, a checkbook, a list of contractors. Not more secrets, plans.
I started drawing these the first Sunday you gave me coffee. Every detail you need is in here.
6 years. He wasn't testing me. He was preparing this gift the whole time.
Renovations will take 12 weeks. I've already spoken to the crew. They begin Monday.
12 weeks. That's when spring comes. The windows can stay open, and the whole place will feel new.
She crossed to the wall-mounted phone, lifting the receiver with hands that had wiped this same counter 1,000 times.
Ma, the diner's mine. We're going to be okay. I signed the papers. It's real, Ma. It's finally real.
I knew you'd find your way, baby. You always do.
She hung up and took the pen. Her signature on the deed was small, deliberate. The most honest thing she'd ever written. With steady hands, she tied her yellow scarf the way her mother taught her, and stared at the woman who would now run this place. Spring arrived with the scent of sawdust and fresh paint. The counter remained, but everything else was reborn. Frank Jenkins shuffled in one afternoon, thinner and older. But his eyes lit up at the chrome and vinyl.
You did good, Barbara. I am proud of you. This place needed a heart like yours.
Harold visited every Thursday, not to check progress, but to share coffee and silence, his old ritual intact. On the Friday before opening, she hung the sign herself, Wallace's. Since 1981, new beginning, same love. Late that night, she pulled out her mother's recipe box, The handwritten card, worn soft from decades of apple pies. She measured flour, folded butter, and every heartbeat was a memory of her mother's hands, guiding hers. By 2 in the morning, the pie cooled on the counter. She wiped the cash register, now hers, and smiled at the silence. Tomorrow, the first cup of free coffee would pour. She'd keep the promise, not because she had to, but because it was her own. Only a few hours of darkness left before the diner would be filled with the people Harold had spent a life searching for. At 6:50, the line stretched down East Carson. Men and women in gray, blue, khaki coveralls, holding lunchboxes, waiting.
They actually came. For me. For him. For a promise made over coffee.
She turned the lock, the bell jingled, and Wallace's diner opened its arms. The first wave stepped in, boots on the tile. Within minutes, every stool filled. The air thickened with the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of laughter.
This is the diner I always saw, Barbara. Full of the people who keep the world running.
First cup's yours. As always, welcome home, Harold.
A Union badge glinted on a nearby sleeve, Service Employees International. The promise was already spreading. A young woman in coveralls laughed with Barbara, sharing a story about a flooded basement and a grateful tenant. She poured, served, laughed. Her reflection in the window showed a woman who wasn't just an owner. She was the heart of a home.
This is what he meant. Not a debt repaid. A door unlocked. Forever.
By summer, the diner held its own. Tips from a single Sunday paid off Edith's last care bill. One Sunday, Harold's stool stayed empty. She checked the clock, wiped the counter, and waited.
He never misses. Not once in all these years.
A week later, a courier handed her a thick envelope. The return address read Vance Estate. Dear Barbara, if you are reading this, I have kept my final promise. You gave me 6 years of Sundays. Keep the coffee hot, the pie fresh, and the door open. Tell them it's on the house. She pinned the letter to the wall, then set a small brass plaque beneath it. The plaque read, "In memory of Harold Vance, who believed that kindness is the rent we pay for being here." She placed a yellow rose on his usual stool, the one she would never clear. The diner had lost its quietest regular, but in every free cup poured, he was still there. Years passed. The diner became a Sunday morning sanctuary for the city's janitors, a landmark where coveralls were a uniform of honor. Barbara, now with silver threads in her hair, still tied her yellow scarf the same way. She trained a new waitress, showing her the rhythm of the place. She stopped before the brass plaque, letting the morning light catch the inscription.
Every Sunday, I'd bring him coffee before he could ask. He never told me he owned the block until the day we closed. He gave me this diner on one condition, that anyone in coveralls never pays. That promise is the reason these walls are still standing.
The young waitress studied the worn photograph of the old man in gray.
If they're in coveralls, that's enough. You don't check IDs, you just pour, that's the promise.
She handed the waitress the coffee pot, and the steam rose like a blessing. Outside, the Sunday crowd waited. Inside, a new generation learned the rule that had rebuilt this place from silence. The promise held, not by contract, but by the grace of a waitress who once poured coffee for a janitor and changed her own world. One summer Sunday, an elderly janitor woman settled into Harold's old stool. Her coveralls were faded but pressed. She stared at the plaque for a long time, tracing the name with her gaze. Barbara placed a slice of apple pie in front of her. The woman looked up, eyes bright.
That spot was his for 6 years. Every Sunday, right there.
The woman ran her finger along the brass and said, "He was my landlord." Harold Vance did this in 3 other cities, always looking for kindness. Barbara's hand froze on the coffee pot. She had never known the test stretched beyond her own diner.
He never stopped searching, even after he found me.
The woman raised her coffee cup. He said this place had the best pie in the state. He wasn't wrong.
To Harold, then, and to all the janitors who never ask for more than a fair chance.
The diner erupted in a murmur of agreement. 100 coveralls, clinking coffee mugs. Late that afternoon, the diner door swung wide. A nurse pushed a wheelchair through the Sunday crowd, and the noise hushed.
Barbara, Is this really it?
Mama, she actually came.
Barbara parked the chair right beside Harold's plaque, the two most important people in her life, meeting in the same corner. She set down a steaming cup and a slice of apple pie, the exact ritual she'd performed 600 times for another quiet soul.
Your father would be so proud.
I learned from you, Ma. You taught me to give without keeping count.
Edith's hand, thin and papery, closed around Barbara's. The years of worry unwound like thread.
And look what it brought back to you.
The diner hummed around them, but in that corner, it was just a mother and daughter, and a promise that had grown into a home. When the last customer left, Barbara locked the door and stood in the silence of her own creation. The same damp rag, the same counter. But the hands holding it no longer trembled with fear. She stopped before the brass plaque. Her fingers traced the words she could recite in her sleep. A single yellow rose, fresh as the day she first served him pie. The diner was hers, but it belonged to anyone in gray who needed a cup and a seat. She turned off the overheads. The neon Wallaces bled through the glass, casting her in a red glow. From the street, the plaque was still visible, a promise chiseled in brass, in memory of Harold Vance, who believed that kindness is the rent we pay for being here. She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving the diner to the night and the neon. And every Sunday, just as sure as sunrise, the coffee would be hot and the door would be open. Decades passed, like Sunday mornings. The diner's chrome dulled, but the coffee stayed hot. Barbara's hair turned the color of snow, but her yellow scarf stayed bright. She still trained each new waitress herself. The plaque weathered, but a fresh yellow rose marked his spot every week. One snowy Sunday, a little girl in a red coat pointed at the plaque and tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, why do janitors eat for free?" The mother smiled and said, "Because once a waitress decided to be kind." The girl looked at the old waitress with the yellow scarf, and somehow she understood. Barbara's reflection in the window showed an old woman still standing tall, still pouring. Outside, the snow gathered. Wallace's glowed in red and blue, a beacon since 1981, and the promise held, not in ink, but in every free cup poured for a stranger in coveralls. 50 years after that first free cup, the diner was still standing. A little grayer, but its heart unchanged. Barbara, now slower, pushed a cart with 2 cups, one for the man, and one for the empty stool across from him.
This one's on Harold. He's been buying coffee for janitors since before you were born.
The man looked at the empty stool, then at the bronze plaque beside it. His daughter asked, "Who's Harold?" And Barbara smiled.
He was a janitor once. But more than that, he was a man who remembered to be kind.
She poured the coffee, and the steam rose into the diner's familiar air. And every Sunday, for 50 years, someone in coveralls had a cup waiting. The promise never broke. It never will. The first cup was just coffee. The rest was grace.